Hi everybody, Mike Amato here. I've said before to you that what I'm setting out to do is to democratize executive coaching. And the idea is that CEOs of major organizations and executives of major organizations all have executive coaches to help them. I've coached some and I've seen firsthand how to help them bring their vision to life and maximize their effect on their organization, and even refine their strategy. So whether it's acting as a mentor or a coach, those individuals at the top tend to get a lot of focus and a lot of attention and resources from the company in order to help them succeed. And one of the things I've noticed is that a lot of times then the challenges of execution are to the rest of the organization, who may not get the same level of resources. In fact, they typically don't, because as the organization sort of fans out below the executive level, it encompasses a large number of people that we tend to look at providing support for them in how to do their jobs in much more of a mass setting. Well, what I want to do is to provide tools for not only those middle managers in how to become a better leader, but even frontline colleagues in terms of how to be more successful in your career, and even how that relates to your home life. Because a lot of the same concepts that we talk about from leading an organization and bringing a vision to life are actually the very same concepts that you can apply in your career, in running your business, in your individual life, and even in your relationships. Over the course of time, we'll talk about each of those. But today I want to talk about a question that came up recently during a video conference that we had. And the individual asked me about middle managers and said, why doesn't my manager, why aren't they more effective? You know, I'm just not, I really can't support them, and they really don't do a good job of connecting with me. And so it got me to thinking, what would I say are the attributes of a manager at any level in terms of being much more effective? And one of the first attributes is really the ability to connect, and that's emotional intelligence. And if you haven't read the book, Emotional Intelligence 2.0, it's a phenomenal discussion on how to look at intelligence, about how to not only understand ourselves better, but understand what other people are thinking, and the various steps of connecting with individuals and looking at the world through their eyes. I remember early in my career, I used to think about my effectiveness from at my desk looking out, and then what it must be from the other side of my desk looking at me, and always trying to change places and understand that, make sure that my messages are relevant, make sure that my comments are relevant to the individual, not necessarily just relevant to me. And one of the first things in connecting, in my opinion, in terms of management, is number one, do people want to follow you? See, a lot of times managers look at management as a control function. In other words, if they're given the job, then they must be worthy of it, and everybody should follow them because they have the stripes on their shoulder, as one of my bosses told me. So if you got the stripes on the shoulder, you should all follow me. And the challenge with that approach is that, especially in today's world, and especially with the younger workforce, the millennials, the stripes on the shoulder may not impress them as much as we think they do. And certainly the idea that says, I am worthy of being your manager just because I'm your manager is probably antiquated. What that leads to is a command and control type of leader. And command and control says, you know, I'm in control, I'm in power, and I'll say and you do. And sadly, a lot of leaders interpret it that way. But individuals want to follow somebody who invites them to follow them. They want to follow somebody who says, I want to earn the right to be your leader, and how can I serve you? Think about some of the great leaders in sports, for example. Some of the top golfers, well, all the top golfers have coaches, and none of the coaches play as well as the top golfers. In fact, take the NBA. There's many coaches that have been very, very successful. Phil Collins was extremely successful. He was never better than Michael Jordan in terms of playing basketball. So the coach doesn't have to be better than the individuals that they're coaching. In fact, what they need to do is bring the individual's talents to the fore, which means a philosophy around the type of talent that the individuals have. And bringing some sort of a concept around how can we allow the individual's talents to come to the fore. So a lot of that is a lot more work than the traditional performance management review process creates. So if the main interaction between a manager and an employee is through the employee management process, where you do annual or semi-annual reviews, it's just going to be lacking, because the approach is typically to look at the individual and say, there's 3 or 4 things I need you to work on. Otherwise, you're doing a great job, but you need to do more of this, and less of this, and less of that. And in reality, if you look at anybody, an individual that's competent at their job. Okay, so let's assume that in this discussion, the individuals are competent at their job and they want to improve their performance. My philosophy has always been, if we could talk about the 90% of the things that they do right and do more of that, as opposed to an intense desire for people that want to say, I'll fix my issues, tell me the things I need to work on so I can increase my contribution by doing less of the things that detract from my performance. And in my mind, what that does is draw the discussion to the smaller part of time, the smaller part of the individual, and the parts of the individual that, frankly, you want to leave behind. So why focus on those things? And how can you identify the things that they're doing right and just have them do more of that? Now, that's a little bit different, maybe a little bit of an esoteric discussion, but it's a different way of looking at a performance management a process where you're helping the person maximize their strengths. And you know what it creates is a mindset of what I call a high performance mindset, which is the individual is in a role where they feel confident that they have an advocate in a boss. They have a boss who has said, how can I serve you and help you succeed? And if I do that, then we'll all succeed. That's a service-led manager versus what I described previously was a control-led manager. And when you look at that process and that environment, that energy that the manager is now sending, what a massive difference in how that individual looks at their work. I mean, think about the times we've been at work and probably been the least confident. Most often it's because our bosses are not emitting confidence in our performance. And hey, if we're underperforming, that's how it goes. And maybe it should be that way. But I'd like to think that performance is maximized when there's a relaxed atmosphere and people feel confident to just go for it, to just be more of all the good reasons that you hired them, of all the good things that they bring every day, and just do more of that. I mean, I don't know very many sports that a person can succeed. And I like to talk about golf in this regard. You don't see they don't have a coach yelling in their ear, don't hit it there, don't hit it there, don't hit it there, don't hit it there. Because what happens is they'll hit it there. And so I like to think more about giving the individual permission to really perform, giving them permission to turn themselves loose. In fact, one of the limiters in terms of high performance, I think are targets. And I use targets, that word, very specifically, because I think we need goals, but targets can be very distracting. And the analogy that we've given in the past is that, look, if somebody's in a high jump, and you'll know about me that I love to use analogies, and I like to mix them up in every conversation, so bear with me here, but you're at a high jumper, and you set the target of clearing the bar. And you put the bar there, and the goal is to clear it. And if you ever notice, even in the Olympics, high jumpers never clear the bar by 3 feet. It's always by 1 inch, by 1 centimeter, by 2 inches, 2 centimeters. It's just barely, no matter how high it goes. And so they have a mindset of clearing the target. So if you use a different objective is when you use the word goal. And to me, the goal says I'm going to be a sprinter and I'm going to line up at the starting line and I'm going to benchmark myself against my competition. They're right there and there. And I'm going to bring all of my training to bear right here in this moment in time. And I'm going to give myself permission to get to that finish line as fast as I can. They may have a goal for the time in mind, but really the goal is to get there as fast as they possibly can. And that mindset works really well in business, whether it's a marathon or whether it's a sprint, of saying, look, I'm going to benchmark my performance against others, and I'm going to prepare myself and then give myself permission to perform. And what they do is perform, and they'll move towards the finish line just as fast as they can. And that's a massively different mindset. But to do that, the leader has to set an organizational tone or energy around supporting and serving their colleagues. So when you think about why don't a lot of leaders do that, remember command and control or a control-led leader is only going to get so much out of their workers. In fact, they'll soon attract workers who need to be managed directly, who want to hear, if you tell me, I'll do it. And they salute and execute. So that goes with command and control. Hey, even in the military, they don't do that anymore. In fact, it's probably a leadership style that died out or should have died out, in the 60s or 70s. So instead, look, let's think about service-led leadership, Let's think about working out with individuals on maximizing their strengths, not minimizing their weaknesses. Because by doing the first, maximizing the strengths, you naturally do the second without ever focusing on it. And third, give an environment, energy around, let people perform. I mean, how often have we heard leaders say, we just need to be more innovative here? Well, you can't be innovative if you're not courageous, and you can't be courageous if it's not confident, and you can't be confident if there's not an attitude of support for you. So with that in mind, to me, those are the key things in leadership today. As we talk more about leaders, specifically middle managers, we can talk more about specific tools that leaders can use to actually maximize their success and move out of middle management roles on the groundswell of support from their colleagues into higher positions as well. So with that, I'll say goodbye. Hey, thanks so many of you who have been subscribing. YouTube is Amato Spark or Mike Amato on YouTube. Facebook is Why Not You by Mike Amato, because I do mean it. Why not you? And please take a look, and please do subscribe. Help me build my base, and I will soon have the ability to bring to you a much more helpful tools in terms of running your business, running your career, and even running your relationships in your life. Boy, that was a misspeak. And your life, running those towards a vision that you have in mind. So there you go. That's it for today. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.